Welcome to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast. I'm Dr. Ben. I'm a naturopathic doctor empowering you to heal yourself through whole food, plant based nutrition, as well as mindset, mind body medicine. And today on the podcast, I guess we're doing something a little bit different. That being said, this podcast is ever evolving, ever shifting. We're kind of finding our new flow here in the journey of the podcast universe, as well as, of course, streaming to YouTube. And, we stream in our Facebook group, Plant Based and Stress Free, which, we haven't been super active in, but that's not to say that we're not going to be. We've got stuff happening. So you can always come in there if you are on Facebook. Let's see, any other housekeeping or announcements before we dive into, oh my gosh, the most amazing thing in the universe. That is being a dad, the birth journey, the graceful birth journey. We've got just a little bit of peace and quiet, you might say, as Dr. Susanna and baby Grace are out for a walk. So it feels like, it's so quiet. That's, Grace has been a quiet, sleeping beauty. Everything's going super well. I'm gonna just touch in on the birthing of my fatherhood experience and kind of coming into that. Also want to discuss the insights that I've had through the kind of practical birthing experience of Grace into the world. One could say that it didn't quite quote unquote go as planned. We planned for a home birth and ended up having to be transferred to the hospital for a little bit more support. So I'm going to share some of my insights navigating that medical system. It's been a really long while since I've had the opportunity to navigate the medical system and was faced with some challenges. So I wanted to share my insights and kind of, I guess, recommendations for myself if and when I need to do that again. And yeah, just kind of a little recap on, again, the most miraculous thing in the world, which obviously, I'm just always baffled when I look out in the world and kind of people walking down the street, so on and so forth. And it's like, there are so many parents. There are so many parents because there are so many children. We're all children of parents. So like this miracle of life, obviously I have taken it for granted. Like, oh my gosh, we're just like human beings, but we are all birthed from a mother, and we've all had a father, at least through the conception period, hopefully more and beyond that. But we've all been through this totally transformative experience. Not all of us are parents, but we've all had parents. We all do have parents. And so I've just have this new respect for human beings and just what we are capable of. Not only the incredible transformation of a pregnant mother giving birth to a baby through like the birth canal and that whole mind-blowing physical experience, but also just the general transformative experience of like having an offspring and creating something out of nothing. Like literally two cells come in and fertilize, and then we've got this creature that ends up being its own free thinking sovereign being with free will and creativity and wisdom, and that life force that we have, like we give it to another creature. We create that. So it's just been mind-blowing to kind of see that in action in my house, in our home, every day with beautiful baby Grace. And just backing up a little bit, Susanna and we did give birth to Grace Juniper Alter, October 13th, 2022. She's coming in on 6 weeks old. And yeah, just starting, I wanted to kind of recap my birth journey. That's what this episode is all about, recapping the graceful birth journey of a dad, because let's face it, we're not really involved with the birthing process. We don't give birth. But I was turned on to this book that is entitled "Do Dads Matter?" And I've only recently cracked into it, and I and the answer to that question, "Do dads matter?" Yes, of course they do. And they matter more so than our culture and society has kind of led us to believe. Scientifically speaking, physiologically speaking, hormonally speaking, dads matter a lot. Anyways, I wanted to speak from a dad's perspective, sharing my birth journey, which was the most difficult and emotionally draining and wildly expansive experience of my life. And I think that most parents put birth of their child or children on the top, whatever, two or three, of life experiences. But anyway, so Susanna and I, we've been working with this incredible midwife. She's really just like a freaking superhero. She's amazing. And we had everything planned for a home birth. And I guess I'm not going to get into a lot of the nitty gritty details. Maybe Susanna will do that at some point if she's called to do so. But without sharing too much, Susanna's water broke midnight on whatever night, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is happening. And me and her not really knowing what like the whole birth journey, the physiologic process was like. Obviously we know this stuff, but practically in the moment, not so much. It's like, oh my gosh, this is exciting, like what do we do, what's next? And the fact is that Susanna's water broke, and then Susanna's body wasn't really experiencing any signs of early labor, no contractions, nothing really happening. So of course it was the middle of the night. We went back to sleep, got a few hours of sleep, and woke up in the morning and called the midwife again. And she kind of told us to, we kind of had our discussion. She was like, this isn't really ideal, because ideally we are the mother is kind of having contractions and signs of early labor before the water breaks. And then the water breaks, that kind of speeds up or accentuates contractions. And then, you move into active labor and start having more significant and closer contractions that are, progressing, of course, and blah, blah, blah. And then you push the baby out. So anyways, that we weren't really in labor, but we're trying to get Susanna's body into labor. So of course, the midwife, and there's all sorts of natural things, acupuncture, acupressure, movements and exercises and the things doing with your body. And then like concoctions of castor oil and like all other things that you can do. And then there's kind of more invasive things that the midwife or birth support person can help to kind of stimulate labor and stimulate contractions. So long story short, we spent the entire day, we woke up and spent the entire day doing all of these things to stimulate labor in Susanna and get things going. And things were going, and things did get going, and things got going pretty well and intense at home. And oh yeah, backing up a little bit, the reason why it's not ideal for the water to break before contractions is because the longer the water has been broken, the increased risk of things like infection, because the water sac, the amniotic sac is like a sterile environment. And once that amniotic sac is broken, then there's risk for stuff getting in the vagina and going into that amniotic fluid, and then kind of causing the baby to have some sort of infection and put the baby in distress, and so on and so forth. So anyways, the goal is to get things moving as quickly as possible and enter active labor and get the baby out as quickly as possible. Conventional standards are, I think, around like 24 hour, or I don't really know. I think there's a lot of different standards based on different other factors. But in Colorado, for midwives, I think there's regulations, because of course midwife isn't just someone off the street. There's a lot of training and a lot of regulations and laws, I guess you could say, that midwives need to operate within. And so the goal is for a woman to be in active labor within 18 hours. And the definition of active labor is 6 centimeters dilation of the cervix. So anyways, we made it. After 18 hours of Susanna's water being broken, we made it to about 6 centimeters dilation, and we're like, okay, we can have this baby at home. And we kind of started relaxing a little bit. Kind of, things were still intense. Susanna was having contractions. She was not very comfortable, but we're like, okay, we can kind of get comfortable and kind of do our best to just kind of relax and settle in and trust what's going on in the body. But it turns out that what was going on in the body for Susanna was actually Susanna's response to all these interventions, and not Susanna's innate birthing hormones happening. So, in other words, Susanna's body did not sustain these contractions, and then they kind of fizzled out. And, it got to be around midnight or so the next night, so 24 hours in. And we're like, okay, things are kind of slowing down and not going in the right direction. So, of course, this is where medicine comes into play, because there's a lot of things, or at least there's one main thing that really gets labor going, and that is oxytocin, which is, of course, a natural hormone. But we can get synthetic pharmaceutical oxytocin called Pitocin, and that really strongly, significantly induces birth. So of course we decided to go to the hospital and get that process going. So yeah, and just kind of surrendering into that, I think, was a relief. Like, okay, we can, like, we're not attached to having this like home birth experience with candles and music and blah 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 blah. But we're attached to having a healthy baby. Like, that's like the priority. Duh. So we transfer to the hospital at like 2 a.m. and get Susanna on Pitocin, and then yada, yada, yada. I'll kind of like fast forward to Susanna having the baby. Things, medicine works. Medicine does work, and the baby and Susanna's body responded very well to Pitocin, and the baby started moving down the birth canal. And holy cow, it was time for this baby to come out. And the birth plan was for me to catch the baby and announce the sex of the baby, because this was a surprise, and put the baby on Susanna's chest and just go from there. So the baby started, you could see the head and crowning, and it was very quick. The pushing process for Susanna. Next thing I know, I'm literally holding the baby, and it just plopped out of Susanna and into my hands. Like, the delivery nurses warned me that it was kind of like a wet noodle, and I had to hold on tight. And it was very much like a wet noodle. I was barehanded. I didn't have gloves. I was like, no, this baby is not just hitting a gloved hand first thing into the world. This baby is coming into a natural, loving, real environment. So that was my hands. And oh my gosh, held on tight. And I was just like totally emotional. It was just first of all, we had both been awake for like 72 hours or something, or 48 hours or more or less at that point. And just so drained emotionally, such a roller coaster. And I forgot, I was like, the nurse asked, like, what's the sex, Dad? And I was like, oh my gosh, it's a girl. And still, our midwife recorded this experience on a video. She was like, had my phone in the corner, like recording this whole thing. So I still have this video. We still have it, and I'm sure we'll cherish it forever. Just such an incredible moment. So yeah, put this beautiful baby girl on her mom's chest, and this long, beautiful umbilical cord, and oh my gosh, and then the placenta came out, and blah, blah, blah. And she was healthy and vibrant. And but the one thing, and I hope and I trust that this is okay to share, because this is where the learning and insights from the hospital experience start to come in for me. First of all, the hospital down the valley from us has an incredible labor and delivery unit. You walk in and it's very empowering and nurturing and home like, and like, mom's in charge, and the delivery nurses are amazing, and the great team, and just a great experience. And you know definitely would, 5-star, would recommend. But then baby comes out, and it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different ball game. So Grace was a little bit blue. She was a little under oxygenated, and kind of, she pinkened up. She got her color. But then, they monitored her oxygen saturation, her blood oxygen saturation, and it was a little low. And they put her on a little bit oxygen right there in the room, and her oxygen came up, and, they took her off, and it kind of dropped down into the mid to upper 80s again, 80%, 85 or 88% or so. And they made the decision right there, like, we need to monitor her oxygen continuously for such and such period of time, and there's chance that she could have an infection because of the duration that mom's amniotic fluid had been, or amniotic sac had been broken. So, anyways, we went from this like nurturing environment to this really intense, like fear-based medical environment, where all of these decisions were being kind of forced onto me. And I was just like, no, like, what are you talking about? I was like, this is a conversation. They didn't know that I was a doctor. They didn't know my medical knowledge, and they didn't know my perspective and opinion and thoughts on things. They just kind of were imposing their way. And I was like, no. Like, it was just like, no, you're not just like taking this baby and giving her antibiotics and putting her on oxygen and monitoring her. Like, we're having a conversation about this. We need to have a conversation about this. So my energy was very firm and, I guess one could say, like, contrary or combative, or I don't know. I don't feel too aggressive, but anyways, that energy, looking back, was like, threw a red flag for them. They're like, these parents, or at least this father, is a little cuckoo crazy. We need to take care of this baby because, uh, you know, she's at risk if dad is left to making the decisions. And let's face it, in the hospital system, in the medical establishment, it is fear based. The process, or the goal, is to look and make sure that there's nothing going wrong. It's looking to find what's wrong. I should say it's looking to find what's wrong. It's not looking at what's right. So Grace, had her APGAR scores were like 6 out of 8, I believe, and she was perfect APGAR score except for her coloration. So she was like very, like, doing great. If you looked at this baby holistically, she was doing great, and she didn't have any fever. She didn't, it was just like her lungs and her, things were moving, and it just was taking her some time. So anyways, we with the support of Susanna, because let's face it, moms moms are in charge. Moms are in charge. We surrendered. We surrendered to, okay, put Grace on oxygen and continuously monitor out the oxygen. They wanted to continuously monitor for 24 hours. So we're like, okay, that means we're staying in the hospital a lot longer than I wanted to. But anyways, it's like, okay, yeah, for Grace, for mom, for everything involved, like, for sure, monitor the oxygen. And so she was taken away out of the room and put in the quote unquote NICU, even though in this like small hospital, it's like very low level, whatever, like, level 2 or 3 or whatever, not level 1 trauma center. So it was a very low key NICU experience, and it was fine. But, just not ideal, not the most nurturing experience. So Susanna and I took shifts in there, holding Grace pretty much constantly. Of course, mom was feeding her every couple of hours. just when we weren't in the NICU nursery with Grace, we were either feeding ourselves, trying to lay down and rest and take care of ourselves. And, it was draining. It was really draining. So Grace ended up doing great. By the way, in terms of the oxygen that she was on the lowest possible oxygen setting. That ended, it was like, 20 milliliters of oxygen per minute, which is, like when you hear the tube, you can't even hear anything coming out. So just a teeny little bit of oxygen was enough to kind of keep her stable. So they were very insistent on keeping her there for the full 24 hours. And then they, of course, wanted to look at an x-ray. They wanted to do blood culture. They wanted to look for anything that could possibly be wrong. And sure, it's okay. It's like, okay, do that. Do all that stuff that you need to do. Check all those boxes. But the thing is, as we always kind of warn or at least educate our clients about, like, the more you look for, the more you find. So of course they took an x-ray and they found some like fluid in her lungs, which is very normal for babies because babies are in an aquatic environment. And then when they're born, the fluid comes out of their lungs, and there's always a residual amount of fluid that is trapped in their lungs. And the first few hours to days of life is about kind of clearing the lungs and breathing and getting lung function. So, from the medical perspective, it's like any amount of fluid in the lungs, again, is like, oh, could it be an infection? Could that be happening? And based on I'm not a NICU doctor. I'm not a pediatrician. That's not where my expertise is, but I am an expert at seeing health. And looking at this baby, she was healthy and vibrant. She didn't have any fever. She was feeding really well. She wasn't, she had all the signs of health. She had all the signs of health. She just, under the hood, you could say, she had a little bit of fluid in her lungs that there was a lot of confidence that that would clear on its own. That's kind of the perspective. But it's, again, in the medical system, it's operating on the worst case scenario basis and ruling out the worst case scenario and doing everything you can to cover your ass, because that's really what it is: cover your ass kind of procedures and protocols and measures. And it's all based on algorithms and, risk stratification equations and stuff like that. So anyways, again, surrendering to doctors' recommendations within the hospital. So based on the x-ray, it was like, okay, we think we should wait another 24 hours just to really make sure, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. Susanna was fine with it. I was fine with it because Susanna was fine with it, even though I was kind of putting up a fight. Fine. And here's where things kind of take another turn. Whew. Sorry if this is too much drama, too many details, but again, there was a lot of learning for me. So the, I guess, second or third day or whatever it was, the next thing that comes up is bilirubin. Bilirubin is, of course, a breakdown product of red blood cells, and red blood cells are cleared by the liver, and the clearance of these bilirubin by the liver is kind of turned on in the first few days of a baby's life. So the risk is that if bilirubin levels rise too early, too fast, then that bilirubin compound can be toxic to the brain and kind of cause neurological issues. So you want to make sure that the bilirubin is low, below some sort of threshold, which, if you're looking at the video, the bilirubin levels, they go up in the first couple days and then they spike and come down. Like, that's kind of what's normal, this normal bilirubin curve. So there's all these like equations, and I think it's billysomething.com, like billysomething.com, which you put in the numbers and the age and the levels, and then they tell you like what you should do. So Grace's bilirubin levels were completely normal, completely below the threshold, but Because Grace was on the lowest amount of oxygen, she was quote unquote clinically unstable because she was requiring supplemental oxygen. Even though, holistically speaking, looking at her as a whole being, she was very stable, very clinically stable, despite needing the smallest amount of oxygen. So, because she was clinically unstable, the bilirubin threshold drops. So, they dropped the bilirubin threshold to just be really safe, again, to protect against potential neurological conditions. But still, with that lower bilirubin threshold, Grace's bilirubin levels were below the threshold, but just ever so slightly by like zero point 0.1 or zero point 0.2 points, right? So, doctor recommendation is, well, we think we should stay in another day and really go under Billy lights, because UV light actually helps the body clear bilirubin. Oh, by the way, we haven't been outside, right? This whole time, we haven't been outside. We haven't even been to a window. We haven't seen the outdoors, which, of course, being outside, being under light, being any sort of light, whether it's like a full spectrum Billy light, quote unquote, or sunlight, ideally, helps the body to regulate bilirubin. So the doctor's recommendation, we should really keep you another day under the quote unquote Billy lights to help the body process the bilirubin. And again, this is where I was like, you got to be kidding me. I want to go home. I want to eat food. I want to sleep in my bed. I want to cuddle with our little girl in our own environment. But anyways, again, surrender to the system. Fine, fine, okay. We'll put this little girl under Billy lights for 12 hours or 18 hours or whatever it was to make the system happy. And yeah, so we did that. And they thought that we should do it for at least like 2 days. They were kind of and like come back and test again. But here's the thing that just honestly I don't understand, because they said, well, her bilirubin's probably going to be a little higher tomorrow. And it's like, yeah, it is going to be higher tomorrow, because that's what bilirubin does until, again, day 2 or 3 or whatever it is. And then it starts coming down. So yeah, she was below the peak, and yeah, it was going to be higher tomorrow. But this kind of algorithm, these equations account for that. So she was below the threshold at this point. Why would she not be below the threshold still at the next point? Anyways, ultra conservative medicine, ultra fear-based medicine, ultra cover your ass protocols. We just go with the flow. We come to learn that the pediatric department of this hospital is operated by a husband and wife couple who we had the great fortune of working with them, and they have their clinic is the pediatric department of the hospital. So every baby that is born in this hospital comes into their pediatric clinic. So you can kind of see where things are going. They're incentivized, to keep these babies in their clinic, in their practice, in the hospital for a longer period of time, incentivized financially. And of course, yeah, you could say that they're just doing a really good job making sure that nothing is wrong. Well, the fact is that you can kind of play that, play that tune like with anything. But the fact is that there's a little funny business. There's definitely conflicts of interest. And that, of course, is just a microcosm of the greater macrocosm of the whole medical industrial complex, right? Which is essentially incentivized by keeping people sick, incentivized by looking for disease, finding disease, and managing symptoms of disease without really curing or addressing any root causes of disease. So yeah, it was an icky feeling. It was an icky feeling to be hooked into this system that was, operating on these kind of negative kind of incentives and stuff. But alas, we survived and we thrived and we got ourselves out of that. And here we are with our beautiful, healthy Grace Juniper Alter. And so I guess the insights from the system were to, one, be super grounded, because it was my initial kind of unhinged father, overbearing, like protective, like, no, you're not going to take my daughter. No, you're not going to do this. No, you're not going to do that. It was that initial energy, that kind of reactive energy, that I think threw the red flags for them. I did have some negative interactions with the initial pediatrician, which I'm sure in the chart they put down the red, dad is a little crazy. So if I were more grounded, I'm sure things would have gone very differently in the hospital. So there's that, just the the insight of just being grounded, being calm, being understanding, being inquisitive, being curious, but also, yeah, asking all of those questions, not just listening, not just doing what we're told, but inviting the conversation, learning more, again, from a grounded place. That's what I learned. Like, that's the way to do it. Whether it's with your doctor that you're talking with about, blood pressure medications or blood sugar regulation options, or whatever it is, we talk with and kind of coach our clients all the time, navigating the system, navigating the relationship with the doctor. And to be quite honest, I feel super humbled, because I didn't know how difficult it was at times to navigate the system. It really takes some balls and brains to navigate the system, again, because there's just such indoctrination. These protocols are seemingly written into stone, and you can't question things. That's just goes against. And if you do, you're a problem. So again, it takes groundedness. It takes just that clear-headedness, and also it takes intelligence to ask the right questions and to advocate for yourself. So those are the insights that I've had that I wanted to share. Yeah, I was a problem as well. I am a problem patient for sure. I'm a difficult one, but we've got to be difficult patients, because the system is broken, and the more difficult patients there are, the more we kind of encourage the restructuring of a new system that serves our needs as individual beings, not just a freaking diagnosis or whatever it is. So there's that. Now, kind of, I want to just wrap up. I guess I've already been going for a half an hour here, but I wanted to wrap up just talking about and I'm sure that this will just kind of just getting going here with the fatherhood thing. But in terms of the insights around just being a dad for the first few weeks here, I guess almost 6 weeks again. Um, it's hard. It's hard. Oh, and this is the other insight about the birth experience that I wanted to share. It is so hard for me. It is so hard to feel so powerless. For Susanna, being in such intense, I won't call it pain because I didn't feel it, but intense sensations, intense experience, for her to be in that level of intensity, and for me to be and feel powerless. Like, there's nothing that I can do to really take it away. I can support her, I can love her, I can hold her, I can create that space where she feels and moves through it. I can do that, and it's very difficult. But there's nothing I can do to take it away. And that kind of surrendering to, I don't know, I guess it's that like kind of forfeiting any illusion of control. I have zero control of your body. Like, I've got control of my body, I've got control of my energy, I've got control of my state of mind to some extent, I've got control of the presence and space I can hold. I have zero control of your experience and what goes on with you. That kind of, just the depth of that fact, the depth of that truth has translated into fatherhood a little bit. For Grace, she seems really uncomfortable at times. I don't know what's going on, and I do know that it's normal for babies to cry. It's normal for babies to cry. I didn't honestly before I was a dad, before I did a little research, before I asked questions, before I talked with other fathers. I thought that when a baby cried, it meant that there was something wrong, and you got to figure out what's wrong and fix it. And sometimes there are things wrong, right? A dirty diaper, you got to feed them. Maybe there's like, maybe they're a little uncomfortable. What are the other things? Maybe they just need to be held or supported. But sometimes you cover all those things. You change the diaper, you get a good feed, and you hold them and rock them and love them, and they're still crying, and they're still crying. And so it's for me, that has been really difficult to feel like there's nothing I can do to take away whatever discomfort, whatever pain or tension might be held. And of course, it's like, let's face it, mom has the soothing the soothing milk. Mom has the soothing juice that really does, she's mothers are equipped to soothe a lot more so than dads. So I feel like I'm not holding my weight. I'm not carrying my weight in parenthood. I know that there will be plenty of opportunities for me to carry my weight, but it has felt very challenging to kind of surrender and let go of this need to soothe and nurture and fix and stop crying. And yeah, so it's been a journey, been a process, and I it's unfolding, and I look forward to kind of deepening into that as I hear the baby crying in the background. Susanna and Grace just got home from a walk, and usually the walk is, rocking Grace to sleep. She loves falling asleep on the move, like most babies. But anyway, like, it sounds like it didn't quite work out this last walk. So we'll find another way to get Grace some sleep. Um, yeah, I guess that's it for now. I guess that's all I've got to share for now. Again, whew, I know that things are just beginning. Things are just beginning in the journey of fatherhood, and I'm nervous. I'm scared. I'm excited. I'm scared, to be honest, and I'm excited, and I'm super excited, and I'm super scared, and I'm just holding myself in the fullness of all that experience, knowing that it's okay to be excited and scared and like all of those things. Totally okay. So, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hearing my journey. And if you got any comments, feedback, thanks for sharing them in the comment section, either on YouTube or Facebook or in whatever podcast review section you have at your fingertips. And if you're not already subscribed or whatever, feel free to do that as well. So, peace and love, you guys. Look forward to catching you next time.